Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Law of Detachment. And giggle because it's probably one of the most difficult ones for us to get our head to agree with. It's this Law of Detachment. So we'll be spending some time tonight exploring that and looking at the various ways that we do that. So I'm just going to share the screen so that we can get this all up and running. So you can add your chat boxes, you can open them, and if you'd like to say hello on the chat box so long to everybody, like I said, there's a few more people that are joining us, but you can do that in the meantime. So you can say hello and let everybody know how you're doing on the chat box so long. Okay, cool. Right, I'm going to do that. Okay, you can all see it, yeah? You can all see the presentation there. Cool. All right, everybody seems to be very heavy tonight. What is happening? Huh? You have to flow with your heaviness, yeah? Yeah, the emotion that's coming up for everybody. All right, so like I said, the law of detachment, and you would have seen me even in the invitations refer to this as the law of attachment and the law of detachment, and both are equally accurate. If you wanted to kind of Google the laws, which I mean, some of us, that's where we can also get information. There's many great channels that have done work around some of these things before, is you can look up the law of attachment or the law of detachment, and we'll be talking about both those sort of aspects tonight and how they work. So just as a kind of starting point, let's just kind of get a check-in, see how you're doing, and any reflections that have come up for you or questions that have come up for you from the past two webinars. So we've done the law of clarity and the law of flow is what we worked on last week. So I think there's few enough online tonight that we can really just get each of you to say a quick hello and a check-in, and anything that you want to reflect or ask about in terms of the previous two webinars. So who'd like to start us off? Who'd like to speak first? Just do a quick check-in, nothing overly dramatic. Who wants to go first? Give you a chance to come centered into the room. Shall I pick on you? Linda, I'm picking on you.
I was just trying to find my unmute button. Hi. So I'm Linda. Yeah, things, I am feeling a bit heavy, but lockdown is it's been a long haul, and it's forced me into a lot of changes and a lot of restructuring and trying to figure out a new way to be going forward and to recreate my business. And I think one of the most powerful things that I've been sitting with now for the last 2 weeks since the first one, the law of clarity, was when you went into the dictionary definitions of clarity, and when you then took it a step further to clarity being about manifestation, about how important it is to be really, really, really clear about what it is we want. And I teach this to my clients, I talk about it, but I don't know why, when you went through this dictionary, I still see the slide, and it's stuck with me. It's the kind of thing I'm waking up thinking about at night, because I kind of got then how important being that clear about what is it that I want. And I know a lot of us are in this space with the lockdown and having time, and a lot of people facing changes. My husband's had to retrench somebody today. You know, there's just so much going on, and trying to figure out where we fit and how we fit and all that sort of stuff. And that's been, for me at this stage anyway, one of the biggest things that has impacted and certainly that I've been processing.
Well, it's one of the, you know, in order to be clear about what we want, we have to be deeply connected to who we are. And if there's any disconnect in that, if there's any semblance of trying to reject who I am, then it transfers into a sense of desire about what I want, yeah? So that makes sense. Awesome, thank you, my darling.
Thank you.
Sandra, shall we go to you?
Sorry, here we go. Yeah, I think, after the last webinar, it's obviously been on my mind, and I've actually allowed myself to flow a little bit more with the situation. It is what it is. We know that this COVID is gonna be around for a long time, and we need to start living instead of being afraid of dying.
Yeah.
Essentially. So it's being in that flow. And I'm very much of a control freak. So I have to sit with my 8-year-old boy every day, all day, with online schooling. And I've actually taken a step back and let him get into his flow as well.
Yeah.
And with that has come, my body's desire to flow and start moving some stagnant energy as well. So it's been a good week. Some of the stuff happens without you even really thinking about it. So it just shows how it's actually working, on your mind, behind the scenes all the time. So it's been really good.
Now, I was just saying to Linda before we started and came online that it is, especially when you do the sessions live, you get quite an energetic boost, and so things start to impact your energy field whether you want them to or not necessarily. You've kind of signed up and given permission. So the same happens in the recording, but obviously when you show up live, there's a frequency that's in that obviously starts to waken us up and do certain things and notice. The biggest thing for us to do is stay awake and pay attention to what's going on,
Yeah.
Perfect, awesome.
Thank you.
Angela, do you feel like you can talk, my love?
Yeah, so yes, these two sessions, they were quite full on. And just to walk the talk on implementing them.
Yeah.
So I don't know, today I'm a bit all over the place, so.
That's okay, you're allowed to be all over the place. But it is, these laws are so simple, yet so complex in our ability to actually embrace them and work with them and walk with them. Perfect. Margot, you want to share?
Hey, happy to share. So I didn't sit in on the live session last time. I listened to the recording, and I completely get what you're saying. I think the energy of sitting in when it's live is that much more intense. So I did notice when I was listening to the recording a degree of distraction. Okay. So I think if I was to characterize my life over the last probably 6 years, it's been one of distraction. So I was really looking forward to actually just being on the live call tonight. Okay. So I Taryn, what can I say? I've taken a little bit out of both the law of clarity and also the law of flow. And I've really enjoyed them, so it's been good also to go back and listen to the recordings again and just kind of reflect on it again. So I guess where I am is just kind of moving through the kind of body of knowledge and beginning to apply it to self. Yeah. I particularly like the law of flow because I think where I've been is just super reactive. And so that one kind of almost hit me between the eyes around it's a choice. And I've known it's a choice. So I think really where I am is I know all of these things cognitively. It's really just embodying them. And so that's why I'm kind of appreciative of this whole series. So looking forward to tonight because I'm pretty sure I'll get something out of it.
I'm sure you will.
Something profound out of it.
I'm being clear. The law of decree is being clear. Yeah. It's a wonderful thing to just kind of start also noticing the memory and the reminders, and that's why these sort of snippets of this wisdom that all kind of intermingle, and you all would have some memory of it, reminds you about how to put small things in place in your life at this point. Okay, so the law of detachment, if you had to think about what it is you would most like to know about the law of detachment. So the law of detachment or the law of attachment, whichever way you would like to think about it now. But if there was one question you could get answered tonight, not a personal question, so not about you in your life, but about the law, what is it you would most like to know? So take a minute, and you may not have the answer to that straight away, but in the chat box, you can just put what questions come up for you. What are the questions that you feel, if you could get an answer to about the law of detachment, it would be meaningful to you? And so I'm gonna carry on, and as you get your questions, you can just put them in the chat box. Just give yourself a little bit of permission to explore that. Okay, how can we detach to an outcome, says Angela. We'll talk about that. You're on the right call. How do we detach? The how to of it. Okay, beautiful. You're on the right call. You're on the right call. Okay, and so as those of you that are still thinking about those, you can have a look at the dragonfly inspiration again and see which other dragonflies call you tonight, even if it's the ones that we have covered already, but just which one or two of these call you tonight. So your heart and your mind would be drawn, or your eyes would be drawn to certain ones. Just what comes up for you. There's always a useful link for you between the one that we're focusing on and the other laws. Just notice, and you can put that in the chat box as well. Non-interference. That's next week's nugget, but a really important one. Faith and gratitude. You'll start to notice how the law of faith is a really important part of the law of detachment, because often we're attached because we don't have enough faith. Perfect, and gratitude. Grace and one. I think, Linda, you often get this one. The law of grace is the law of love, and the law of one keeps coming up for you, Margot. Okay. All right, so Margot and Sandra, if you have any questions that are coming up around detachment, then you can put those forward as well. So the law of detachment, the best way that I could find to describe it for you as a starting point, to try to give you like a sort of overview of the law of detachment, is Deepak Chopra's explanation of it, or his sort of description of it. And in his words, the law of detachment is the following three things: allowing yourself and others the freedom to be who they are. So just let the words sink in and see what comes up for you. The law of detachment is do not force solutions, allow solutions to spontaneously emerge. And he also refers to the law of detachment as uncertainty is essential. It is your path to freedom. Okay, Margot, that's an awesome question. We'll talk about that relationship. So if you have a look at that, there's three very unique dynamics to this. The first thing is that the level of control that we apply in our lives to try and make other people different. We want other people to be something they're not. We want people to be healthier than they are. We want people to be richer than they are. We want them to be smarter than they are. We want them to be nicer than they are. We want them to be something that they're not presenting themselves to be. And we have quite a lot of games we play around that. There's quite a lot of energy trying to make people who we want them to be. Especially those of you that are healers, I often say healers fall in love with potential. They see who somebody could be, and then they're so invested in who they could be, they're very disappointed with who they are. And so we put people on pedestals, or we do all sorts of things. And so we're often living in the gap between who we want someone to be and who they are, whether it be somebody close to us or even somebody far away from us. There's a great statement that says, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And the law of detachment is allowing that to be that, to allow people to suffer as much as they want to struggle, to do whatever it is they want to do. But similarly, the only way that we can start to do that is by giving ourselves permission to be who we are. And not the performer in us, the ego of us, the part of us that's performing for approval, to be who we naturally are. So now that brings with it a certain amount of questions. is what are the parts of yourself you hide? What are the parts of yourself that you are afraid of expressing? What are the parts of yourself that you feel are inadequate or not acceptable? Every time we do that, we're also living in the smallness of it, of not allowing ourselves the freedom to be who I am. Yeah. And often we are seeking permission to be who we are from others. We want others to say, it's okay, you can be as wacky as you want, as strange as you want, as fat as you want, whatever it is. We want others to give us permission, but it doesn't matter. It's the internal permission. Okay, that's great, Margaret. So this unlimited possibility, it's a beautiful way. So the first one, the law of detachment, also then the first one is allowing yourself and others the freedom to be who they are. We have to really look at the binds, the manipulations, the games we play. That's part of what we'll look at tonight. The next thing is do not force solutions, allow solutions to spontaneously emerge. And this is going to be a tricky one when we compare it to the law of clarity. In the law of clarity, there was a lot of information, as Linda was pointing out, is be clear about what you want, but then allow it to emerge. And our minds go, well, which one do you want? Do you want me to be clear or allowing? You know, do you want me to flow with it or be clear? And the truth of it is be clear about what you want and detach from it having to be that way. Be clear about what you want and release the need to know how. So the detachment is I don't have to say how something is going to happen. I just need to be clear of what I want. So let me give you a little bit of an example at this early stage, is that if I want to be financially free, that I can get super clear about. I can start living in the vibration of being financially free. But when I say I want to be financially free because I want my boss to like me and pay me a bigger bonus, and that bigger bonus must be the one that's in comparison with that person's bonus, because then I know I'm approved of and all my studying's been worth it. That's how I want to be financially free. Now, I'm now attached to how it must happen, as opposed to what you want. Does that distinction make sense? Exactly, Sandra. When we get very attached to the plan and the how, and this is the step and all these things, well, we're in control and we're not in detachment at all. And we'll talk a bit more about that. And then uncertainty is essential in your path to freedom. What I want you to start becoming aware of here is the word freedom is mentioned a few times. And when we have a look at Diana Cooper's words around detachment, she says, if you wish to be free, detach yourself from everyone and everything. It is a prerequisite for enlightenment. So I'm sure that's going to bring up some niggles or thoughts for some of you. Is if you wish to be free, detach yourself from everyone and everything. It is a prerequisite for enlightenment. So, if I had to rename this law for you, instead of calling it the law of detachment, I would call it the law of freedom. Because freedom is what you get when you detach. So if I had to show it to you, if I had to say that I'm attached to something, if I'm living my life attached to an outcome, attached to control, attached to a certain desire, whatever it is, I'm going to talk about what we get attached to now. The opposite of attachment is not detachment. The opposite of attachment is freedom. Either I'm attached to something or I'm free of it. And so the action to freedom is detachment. To move away from being attached to something, I must take the action of detaching, and then I will be able to embrace freedom. Silana's just joining us. Does that make sense? So we need to understand moving from a life feeling trapped, small, bound, feeling enslaved to, there's the action of detachment that leads to the feeling of freedom. And so to talk a little bit about Margot's question, is one of the principles we're going to talk about tonight is how can I be committed without attached? How can I be loving without attached? How can I be invested without attached? How can I be fully engaged, fully present, fully immersed in it, but not attached? Learning to do these things means you get yourself out the way. It means I'm in it, but not of it. I'm in it, but not trying to hold it. It means I'm in the full experience of it. Hello, Lana. Welcome, my love. I'll just see she's joined us, so you're welcome. And
hello.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, and you?
I'm okay. So we've literally just started, so you can, there's the chat box if you want to open that up, and you can share on there, and then feel free to interrupt me as we go along. So anybody have any thoughts or comments or awarenesses or insights or struggles coming up for you at this point? As I've given you these two sort of entry points to thinking about detachment. You just notice what comes up for you. Anybody have anything you want to ask or say at this point? I honestly think, and I don't say this to try and make it more difficult, I think this is the law that is the most confusing for our mind. Our mind wants to control everything. And the law of detachment is asking, just allow yourself to be in your life without trying to control your life, which is different to flow. Flow is I go with it. Detachment means I'm available for the miracles. I'm available for the experience. Great, Margot. So addiction to work comes up for me. So we'll talk about addictions today. Addictions is definitely part of this. So it's a great awareness that you're starting to have that. I think when we talk about detachment, it's like, how often have any of you planned a party, planned a wedding, planned a party, planned a function, planned an event, and then you show up at the event and you miss out on all the greatness that you've planned because you're so busy worrying about the plan and everything working. That you are not in the experience. It's almost like it happens to you. When you're so busy planning your life, you won't be in your life. When you're so busy trying to control all aspects of your life, you won't be in the flow and the experience of your life. And so I can't tell you how many people say to me, I'm stuck and I just want to feel free. And we need to understand freedom is on the other side of detachment. Exactly right, Christmas functions, all these family rituals where we're so busy making sure it's perfect and it's this. It's like, you know, are you even in it? Do you even enjoy it? So one of the things I'm busy putting together for all those of you that are doing the full program is a summary of the laws and who the archangels are that are stepping forward, and the crystals, and then also the sacred geometry that presents itself. I'll come back to that now. And you'll see on the pictures that, on the dragonfly pictures, each dragonfly picture has a sacred geometry symbol. And the sacred geometry symbol is not by accident. It's a very meaningful connection to the law. And those of you that have done sacred geometry will know about it. Those of you that are interested in it, I'm going to give you a little bit of information around it. But this symbol, the seed of life, is the one that is part of the law of detachment. And I'm just going to go back one slide and then come back to it. So holding the seed of life in mind, I want you to kind of hold the pattern when you look back at this and you kind of see this hot air balloon. So this is a card from my deck of cards, and it is about detachment. And it says, detach from anything holding you back. And we'll see this hot air balloon. Now imagine overlaying that seed of life into that, sort of that same circular sort of expansion. And we start to get fire as the energy. Fire and air are the things that make hot air balloons rise. So we need some passion, we need some action, we need some desire, we need some movement. But we also need expansion, we need air, we need to move. But the most important thing is it doesn't matter how much passion and thought and ideas and inspiration and things I have going on, if I'm still got all the ropes holding me to the ground down, I'm never going to take flight. And I imagine, I've been in a hot air balloon once, was not my favorite thing because I'm sometimes too controlling, is you know, when you actually have to release those ropes that hold you here, there's a certain level of fear that comes in with that. There's a certain level of nothing's holding me back now. And so now I have to work with the momentum. So the law of flow really kicks in a great way when we detach. Yeah. And so the question for you tonight is going to be, firstly, to what extent is the hot air balloon even got the fire and the energy in it? To what extent are you allowing yourself to dream and have the inspirations and the thoughts and the ideas that can fill up this hot air balloon? But then what are these cords? What are these ropes that you're using to hold you back? And as we go through tonight, you can start just using that metaphor for yourself. This relationship between the fire and the passion and the energy and the action and the release and the letting go and the breaking the ties that are holding you back. And those two things are momentum. Those two things are the things that create movement forward. If I do one without the other, so imagine I detach from everything, but I haven't got the chutzpah, the passion, the drive, the energy, the inspiration, the action to actually do something, well, I'm just going to lie around and nothing's going to happen. But if I've got all the passion and the action and the inspiration and I'm not detaching, then I'm going to burn out as well. It's just going to fizzle out at some point. So let's come back to the seed of life, and you'll see it here on this one of my favorite cards, this purple and turquoise one, of this dragonfly that is flying away. So you can see it is no way flying into this, it's just moving elegantly away from it. The seed of life is one of the most basic patterns that exists in sacred geometry. It's one of the most important patterns because it forms the basis of everything that you see. So if any of you have ever seen Metatron's cube, or any of the platonic solids, or the flower of life, or the tree of life, or the fruit of life, or the egg of life, if you don't start with the seed of life, you're not able to actually create any of those patterns. So this is the basics. If you don't know how to do the seed of life, if we don't go to that, then we aren't going to be able to build anything else. And so you can think of it as like the foundational pattern of life, the foundational portal for life. And essentially what the seed of life is 7 circles. And so part of what you can do after this class, if you'd like to, is you can draw the seed of life. I'm going to show you how to draw it now. And it's literally 7 circles. So it starts off by drawing one circle. You just draw a circle. Take a compass, draw a circle, anywhere on the page. It doesn't actually matter. Now, if you see this, the circle here, as it forms, is a starting point, as a container. It now means that I've got something that I can work with. You can refer to that as life. I have now a starting point for my life. And you'll see how this unfolds and how you'll get more information around it as we go through it. The next thing you do is you take a point on the circle. Imagine I'm going to use the point where the point is at now, and I literally draw a second circle. Once I've drawn the second circle, this becomes what we call the vesica piscis. The vesica piscis is a symbol for creation. So now I have the overlap, the unity of 1 + 1 is 3. So I've got one circle, but it's made a third portal. And this is essentially how we give life on earth. And I'll show you that now. The seed of life is often called the Genesis pattern as well. And we referred back to the Genesis part of the Bible and how creation was formed. To then go to the next thing, all you do is you take to the first point there where these two circles intersect, and you draw another circle. And you move to the next point of intersection, and you draw another circle. And you move to the next point of intersection, another circle, and so on and so forth. And by now, you should have the pattern. So 7 overlapping circles, or circles that you use one to the next. So once I've got the first one, I can move to the second one, move to third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And I get this pattern, this beautiful pattern that really represents so much beauty. You can see so much in there. And it's a beautiful pattern to work with. So one of the things that I'll include in the portal is a flower of life that you can color, sorry, a seed of life that you can color in and work with and create a mandala from. So why have all of this? Why is this important at this point? Why is it even relevant to the law of detachment? Is if we start to understand that life is a natural cycle of growth. I'm going to say that again. Life is a natural cycle of growth. We start in one place, then it expands, and it expands, and it expands, and it expands. And if we allow it to expand the way it's supposed to, it will expand in a way that creates chaos, creates order in the chaos. If we have a look at the seed of life, it flows into what we call the flower of life. I'll show you how that happens now. But here's a really beautiful description of how the nucleus, how we give life, how the patterns of the egg forming from the sperm and the egg fertilizing, how it gives life. And we can see the seed of life being here as the point where we start to call this the embryo. And if you look at anything in nature, if you do any DNA slicing, if you do any sort of things under any sort of microscopic view of the way things are formed, you're going to see these patterns being formed. The seed of life completes itself by continuing to circle around itself and create the flower of life pattern. So the seed of life is this initial circle in the middle, and then we've got the 7 circles around it. You're going to have to use your eyes will be magic because the seed of life is in there. And then if you continue, you're going to have to draw, I think it's 47 circles. You will eventually get the flower of life pattern. The flower of life, so if the seed of life represents creation, the flower of life represents abundance. It represents nurturing, it represents overflow, it represents so many things. We'll see the hexagon in here, and if you start doing sacred geometry, you'll find a lot of meaningful work. And you've seen the flower of life pattern all over life. The challenge is, we stop at this point because we think that this is our life. And we start to get attached here to people, to things, to ideas, to expectations, to labels, to our past. These are just examples of things that we get attached to. And when we get attached to things at this point, because you think of this as like my life is forming, I'm starting out, I'm doing all these things, but now I can't live without my soulmate. This stuff is important to me. I must make sure things are right. I must have an attachment to all these things. And I start to try and control. I didn't control anything until this point, by the way. No baby gets in the womb and starts controlling its cycle of growth. It allows it to happen. But we create we have our mind and we start to get attached and we want to start controlling things. And what starts to happen is we get stuck. We sabotage ourselves and we actually trap ourselves. Imagine this as being all the sort of expectations, all the things that we get attached to as being like a stuck in the mud kind of feeling. Because now I've released the need to let life happen. And I've started to say, I can only live if I have this person. I can't live without that. This happened in the past, I must make sure that doesn't happen again. I need my car, I need my this, and these sorts of things. We don't allow ourselves to flow with life. And when that happens, if I had to overlay that again on the flower of life, it's like we've stuck ourselves in the middle here and we've blocked ourselves from all this abundance, from all that is available to us. And this is why the law of attachment or the law of detachment, whichever way you want to talk about it, hinders abundance flowing to you. It hinders you getting what you want. So the question is, how do we notice what we do here and how do we unattach, detach from all of these things? So let me pause there and see, what's coming up for anybody. What's your thoughts, your comments, your awarenesses, your reflections? Just having a look at it from this perspective when we start to look at the law of attachment or detachment. Anybody want to share anything coming up for you? Oh, thank you, Linda. I'm glad you enjoyed the explanation. Sacred geometry, it's a gift, great gift to life. Anybody else having any thoughts or questions coming up? You're more than welcome to switch off your microphone if there's something you want to reflect on or share. Okay. So, the minute you're controlling everything, the minute you've decided what life is about, you're in this space. If anybody, I think Angela, you might have, Margot, I'm not sure if you have before drawn the flower of life pattern. It looks like it's a very simple thing to draw. It is not. Because if you try and control it, you're never going to be able to draw it. You have to flow with the circles. The circles tell you what to do. And if you try and design it beforehand, you will lose the pattern very, very quickly. So it's a wonderful meditation around the law of detaching, is to just flow with the circles, and you'll see how the law flow and the law of detachment works with that. Oh, great awareness, Margot. Angela, do you find the same? So when you draw the flower of life, it's not the easiest thing to draw, even though it looks like, how hard can it be? Those of you that are wanting to draw it, there you go. So I do a class on drawing the law of the sacred geometry. I just need to move it online. Okay, so how do we get attached? What is it that we do to get attached? And we need to start understanding there's 5 things we're going to talk about tonight. As I talk about all of these things, it's going to be very useful for you to identify how this manifests in your life. How are you doing this? So as a way of preparing yourself for the meditation that we're going to do at the end of this, I'm going to start asking you on a piece of paper to start listing the things that you're becoming aware that you need to detach from. So as I go through each one, and you can share with others too, is your realization of, oh, I'm attached to that. So we don't want to make attachment a swear word. It's natural. It's what the human mind and ego does. The minute we're ashamed of our attachments, we've got a much bigger challenge going on. So the more we can just allow ourselves to be almost light and humorous with our attachments. One of the first things people ask when, how do we detach? Stop being so worried about being attached. Just like, oh, I'm attached to that. Let me let that go. Oh, I'm attached to that. Okay. But the minute we go like, oh, I'm so stupid. I shouldn't be attached to this, but I am. That level of shame is the thing that makes it much harder. So as a starting point for your own ability to detach is to give yourself permission to just be human. That attachment is natural. It's what the mind does. It's what the ego does. It's what pain creates. All these sorts of things. There's nothing that we need to think of as bad around it. Okay. Right, so we've got 5 things. Living in the past will create attachments. Needing to control the future will create attachments. And so you'll notice one of the things that is going to be super useful in terms of detaching is called presence. When I'm in the present moment, I'm not attached, I'm in it. Remember I was talking about experiencing life? When I'm in the present moment, I'm in it. I'm not in the past and I'm not in the future. and just in the experience of the now. The next thing that creates attachment for us is ownership. It's mine. It's not yours, it's mine. Yeah, it sounds like what most of us say all the time. I'll talk a bit more about that. Dependencies, so these are the addictions that Margot was referring to, and we'll talk about different kinds of dependencies. And then having an external locus of control, which means the outside is the boss of me, if I had to put it in very simple language. So one of the questions I often ask clients is, who's the boss of you right now? And when your client's the boss of you, or your children are the boss of you, or your partner's the boss of you, or your parents are the boss of you, that's a very insightful way, or even just society is the boss of you, that there's an external locus of control that we will talk about. So let's explore each of these and take some time on each of them to be gentle with yourself and notice how that happens for you. So, okay, great awareness, Sandra, great awareness. We'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So the first way we get attached, and the thing that I'm going to ask you to think about, is what's the things from your past that you keep going over in your mind again and again and again and again and again and again? Is there certain things, if you had to sit, I sit here at 46 years old, I don't remember every minute of every day of my life. If I did, I'd be quite exhausted. But there are certain things that replay as the memories. Those memories could be things that make me feel light. Those memories could be things that make me feel sad. Those memories can be things that make me feel a lot of different experiences of my life. Once we can start to understand that I can review my life without reliving my past. I'm going to say that again. I can review my life without reliving my past. Then I start to become free of it. And so many people, when it comes to things that have happened in their past, they'll sit down with me and they'll say, I must let this go. But the truth of it is you can't let it go until you're comfortable that it happened. Till you've integrated it's part of your living. It's part of your experience. It's part of your wisdom. It's part of your makeup. It's part of your life. It just is part of you. A little bit like when a seed opens up and, when we plant a seed in the ground, it was once a seed, it loses the shell. We can't find the shell anymore, but we do know it had a shell at some point. It's just part of now. It's just flowed into something else. But when we get attached to the story of our past as being right or wrong, or good or bad, then that can hold us quite attached to either trying to live up to something that we decided in our past, we'll explain that now, or we live in the fear of repeating our past. So the fear of repeating my past will be I don't want this to happen to me again. But you don't know how many people have hurt me or whatever it is. And we tend to recreate our lives rather than integrating and saying, okay, I've learned. I'm now who I am today. It's not possible for me to do the same thing again. And if I do, then it's not my past repeating itself. It's the current version of me still living in that experience. So I'm going to say that again. As many people say, oh, this is the past. I shouldn't be dealing, I shouldn't be talking about it. It's not the past, it's right now because you brought it up. So you relive it continuously. And that's okay if it's provided it's something that's setting you free, not something that's holding you bound. And I say these things like it's simple, that I told you the law of detachment is one of the most complex ones for the mind to get its head around, is if you've had a lot of pain in your past, which is fine, we all do, what's the gift of it? What's the lesson of it? What's the learning of it? What's the opportunity of it? So at the current moment, you're holding the lesson, the gift, not the pain. And that's a process of healing in itself. And I'm sure you would find many people that you know, maybe you're one of them, maybe you're not, but of people that do not face their wounds from their past, so they end up reliving it over and over and over again. So the courage to learn and heal and grow is a large part of detaching. And that's why the law of clarity is such a powerful law that we've done already, because the law of clarity gives us that perspective shift, that I can look at something from another lens. Remember, we spoke about from the lens of the microscope to the lens of the telescope. But when I can see it through the lens of the telescope, it will adapt, it will shift. So you can notice this by your own, what's the parts of your past that you're holding onto? One of the reasons the world can't heal from racism and past hurts is because we just hold on to them. Look at how much we talk about it all the time. We don't talk about the lessons, we don't talk about the learning. We just talk about the pain. We just talk about who to blame. And I generalize, it's not true of everybody. The second thing that can hold you very attached to your past is the idea that you've been created by your past experiences. So your sense of self, your sense of identity, this is who I am, is not only created by your past. If this was true, there's a part of you in your past that is magnificent. The day you were born, you were perfect. You hadn't achieved anything, you hadn't lost anything, you were without attachment, you were without performance, you were without ego. That part of your past you is also there. It's just amazingly, spectacularly clean of all pain. So who I am today is influenced by my past, but not defined by my past. And that's a complicated statement in itself for us to release. Oh, I love that, Margot. I'm going to read you what Margot's written, and you can just listen to it because it's so beautiful. Everything I believed I was, and everything I created today, I destroy and uncreate it all. Who I was today, I destroy and uncreate. My nightly mantra, she says. It's a beautiful way to live. You are never needing to be attached. Every single morning you wake up, you're new. You're free of everything that happened yesterday. The only thing that holds it in place is our thought process about it that brings it back into the current moment. Now, do we want to really live our lives detached of all memories of our past? No, because part of the meaning of life is the special days and the special memories and the things that make us feel like it's a meaningful life. But even those can be trappings. Think of something like this. I was no one before my child was born. That story is not a healthy story. Because now you've put one thing into a huge bubble and you've dismissed everything else. So perspective is important, that all the moments of our past have been a supportive element of creating the kaleidoscope of who I am today. And when you can go to bed at night, as Margaret has given me that beautiful mantra of I release it all, and when I wake up in the morning, you own the freedom to be who you are in that moment that you wake up. I heard a beautiful way that this was spoken about, where we wake up crystal clear. We wake up as a soul, especially when you wake up naturally, free of all attachment, free of all pain, really, really connected to source and the oneness that is everything. And then the mind remembers it's awake. And it goes and it constructs a reality again. It remembers, what did I do yesterday? What must I do tomorrow? What's this thing? And it detaches us from the present moment. And the more we can start to have mechanisms that allows our mind to support us rather than to take over in that moment, the more we can live detached of the past and in the present. So I'm going to make this very clear, hopefully. Detachment does not mean I don't remember. Detachment means I don't relive it. So can you remember without reliving? And so that's the way you need to start. If I can remember this, I do not need to relive this. So let me just see if anybody's got any thoughts or comments or questions or insights or awarenesses that's coming up for you at this point. Anybody want to share anything? So as you're kind of preparing for us going into the meditation with Archangel Zadkiel shortly, is I want you all to identify one thing from your past you feel like you're ready to detach from. And I'm sure there's many, but just for now, one thing. It can be a small thing. One thing that you feel like that story is not serving you anymore. That reality is not serving you anymore. So I can remember it, but not relive it. Okay. Anybody want to share? All right, Margaret says, definite element of avoiding repeating the past. When we avoid repeating the past, we're in the past. Yeah? So when we trust ourselves to have healed from the past, grown from the past, you're going to make different choices. We'll talk about that now as the detachment. Okay, so control of the future. As Sandra lovingly calls herself, it wasn't so lovingly, but I'm going to make it loving, is a control freak, which is not necessarily. We do not need to be freaks to be in control. But this idea of being in control, and I've spoken a little bit about the idea of the difference between wanting something but not having to control how it must be. And you'll see this picture of the monkey, and some of you will have heard the monkey story before, somewhere along the line. And so if you have, it'll be a great reminder to you. But these little monkeys, I'm not sure that they still do it, but there's a story about this, that the hunters of the monkeys found it very difficult to catch them. They were too clever. They would be able to see through all the traps and they'd be able to figure things out. And so what they started doing was they created these traps where they would take these coconut shells or a glass jar or some kind of container, and they would make a hole in it that was big enough for the monkey's hand to fit in. So the monkey could put its hand into the container. And in the container was fruit, bananas or berries or whatever fruits they were luring the monkey with. And what would happen is the monkey would spot the food, I want it, put their hand in, attach to it. And when they closed their little grubby paw, they could not get their hand out. Yeah, pumpkins and seeds as well. So anything that lures them in. And instead of them just letting it go, they would sit there with their hand in and they would get caught every single time. And they even have done sort of a test where they've actually put pumpkin seeds and fruit and everything outside of the trap next to the monkey, so they could actually just go and get what they wanted there, but they still don't let it go because they've hooked on to that's the way I want it to be. They've become attached to the outcome of what they want. Now, I tell this story not so much as a way of saying we like monkeys. It's really just noticing what are the traps that you've put your hand into. The things that I don't want to be living here, or I don't want my life to be like this, or I want to be able to do that, or I want to be able to do this, or I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. This is not the same as being clear in the law of clarity. This is more being upset that you don't have. And you're quite attached to something. One of the ways that we do this is we get quite attached to being right. We get quite attached to our opinion. We get quite attached to the way we think the world should be. We get quite attached to the way we want things to happen. And obviously the law of flow is the thing that gets impacted here. Because now I'm holding on to something. So the question for you is, what are you holding on to? What have you become so attached to that you obsess about it, that you focus only on that, that there may be other miracles and opportunities all around you, but you can't even see them because you want it to be like that. Or you don't want it to be like that. Either of those things is a similar thing. So I'm going to pause and get us each to share one thing that we think we're becoming aware that that's something I'm attached to. I'm attached to it having to be like this. And that's my fruit. That's the thing that's inside my trap. That trapping keeps me stuck. It keeps me replaying the same story. It keeps me doing these things. So one thing that you feel like you've become attached to, that you kind of have to let go of. So anybody want to speak? If you want to speak rather than type, you're more than welcome to do that. But I'm going to ask each of you to just notice one thing that you become too attached to. Okay. So Linda, you've become too attached to the idea that that's what you want to do. And even though the world might be telling you that's not the best place for you, you just keep holding on. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, Margot. So this is how much money I need to earn to be safe, to be alive, etc., etc. Okay. I'm not going below that. Okay. And we're not saying these are right or wrong. They're just noticing that maybe there's something else I'm missing. Maybe there's something else available to me. Maybe there are other, maybe there is other earnings available. Maybe there is other things. Yeah. Sandra, Angela, Lana. Let's see what else you guys are being aware of. So I'll give you a strange perfectionism. I must be right. Yeah. Okay, to reach for what you want, you have to work for it. Sandra, I have to be busy all the time. Okay, so now you're starting to see these are the things that you would have in your head as right and wrong. And like I'm very attached to that. And even if other people come up with some other suggestions, you just kind of take them out. Don't give me ideas. I'm not looking for ideas. This is what I'm doing. So we get stubborn with these things, which is very different to flow, by the way. So if this is your door, it will open. But when you're attached to a door and it doesn't open, you're going to sink. You're going to go down with the Titanic, if you get that metaphor. Very bad metaphor. So I'll give you a strange example, maybe, is that when I started doing this work, I got very attached to my crystals. Now, those of you that have been in my life recently will realize I'm not as attached to my crystals as I once was. But that was quite a journey. And I started losing crystals. And the one day in a session, the guide said to me, give this person that crystal, one of my favorite crystals, let's just give it to them. I was like, I can't work without that crystal. I can't live without that crystal. And you're going to see how this talks into the next thing as well. Is the idea that that is what I have to be able to be okay is not That's an attachment that holds me separate from being able to flow with what's available. Right, Linda, is it wrong or bad or selfish to have a life away and not be here to support and take care of mom? Nope. Nope. What if the opposite was true? What if the law of clarity asks you to flip it around? What if by being away from your mom, you can take care of her better? And yourself. Okay, so that's your seeds that you're aware of. Awesome. Okay. So, we do not want trapped monkeys. You cannot ascend on your ascension path if you're a trapped monkey. You need to be able to move with what is a higher order. And so sometimes what you want is not what you need. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes what you want is not what you need. Now, the law of abundance, the law of clarity, all these things say, please be clear about what you want and then let go of it. If it's not what you need, it won't be there. But something else will be if you're not holding on. So something else will take its space. Remember, we've looked at the law of flow and the law of clarity of creating space for that which must come will come. So what you want, Linda, is to be able to care for your mom. How? Might be differently. Okay. Right. Lana, are you with us? You okay?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm listening.
Okay, good. Let us know if you need anything. Okay, so do these two elements make sense to all of you? That this past part and this future part, how they hold us trapped in our mind's version of life, rather than in flow and detachment. So the next one we've got is ownership. So my crystal story starts to talk about this a little bit. And the ownership thing is a scarcity mindset of holding on to things because they're mine. The idea of ownership is something that keeps us very attached to things. So we can look at ownership in a number of different ways. You can look at ownership in terms of assets, in terms of property, in terms of things, in terms of money, in terms of all those things. But we can also look at ownership in terms of people, animals, living beings. This is my dog. This is my child. This is my partner. They're not. They just happen to be your child right now. They're not yours. They're related to you. They're part of your world. They're part of your life. But most dysfunctions in relationships happen because of an ownership thing. And when I own you, then I'm jealous. When I own you, then nobody else can have something. So Osho talks a lot about to truly love is you need to let somebody be free. But when you own somebody else, that's not love, that's control. And that's attachment. You know that statement, the very simple one that says, if you love something, set it free. And if it comes back, it's yours. And if it's not, it was never meant to be. So the truth of this spiritually is that you can want lots of things and you can have amazing relationships and you can be surrounded by things and people that bring you love and support and comfort. Don't try own it. It's not yours to keep. It's free. It's got its own free flow. The minute I'm controlling you or my things or any of these things, I become stagnant. I become attached. So I'm not in control of what other people in my life do or think or say. I can love them. I can support them. I can be with them. But walking next to them, holding their hand is very different to giving them, being the director of their life and telling them what to do, and vice versa. And this is difficult. Anybody who has a child, they know that they feel like they own them. You're my child. You come out of my womb, I'll tell you what to do. If you're my husband or my partner or then I will tell you what to do. But none of us, you can think about this for yourself. How many of you like being told what to do? How many of you want to be owned? and controlled. And this becomes particularly difficult when I do exactly, Sandra says I rebel. So do most people, by the way, which puts the control freaks into more control mode because like, don't, you know, now you're being rude. So your story is beautiful, Sandra, of trying to let your son also find his own path a little bit with his work. Yeah, and that you are not in control of all of that. So ownership is also one of the things we really need to start understanding, is that you own nothing in life. If you think about it, you were born with nothing and you will die with nothing. The whole sort of life cycle of our human life is going from nothing to nothing. Along the way, we get to experience great things. We get to experience different homes, different cars, different people, different jobs, different experiences, different places. We get to experience it all, but none of it will last. Not a single relationship will last. Not a single job will last. Not a single home will last. What I mean by that is, if I say every single relationship will end. Some relationships end after a one-night stand, and some relationships end after 50 years and one person dies. All relationships end. All jobs end. Nothing is permanent and everything is sacred. I'm going to say that again. Nothing is permanent and everything is sacred. And the challenge with ownership is that when I think I own something, I really am playing into the law of scarcity. I'm playing against the law of abundance, because now I get competitive, I get jealous, I get into snatchy, I get into it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. You can't look at it, it's mine. You can't play with it, it's mine. So the way that and this does not mean that you need to look at all the stuff you love and say that you don't want it anymore. That's not true. You can enjoy it. So detachment doesn't mean having nothing. It just means that the things aren't controlling you. Is that they can come and they can go. And I'll enjoy them whilst they're with me. People, things, I'll enjoy it. I also don't have to suffer with nothing, because that's not what this is about. This is just about not holding on to it and owning it. So some of you would know that with COVID-19, there's a lot that people are needing to detach from. So for me personally, I had a training room in Bryanston, and I've needed to release it for lots of different reasons, predominantly financially. And the minute I made the decision that I needed to release it, it just took care of itself. It just flowed. Before that, it was really difficult because it was my room and I don't want to give up my room. And it was unfair that life is making me give up my room. And you can have your tantrums. That's fine. It's still not your room. It's time for it to move. So allowing things to move as they need to is a really, really difficult principle. A way that the guides often talk about this is that you're the keeper or the experiencer or the lover of that at this point in time, but you're never the owner. You don't own your home, even if you've bought it from the bank. It's not yours forever. It's yours for now. So enjoy it, love it, care for it, nurture it, experience it. But everything ends. Does that make sense? Tough one. Anybody having any insights or awarenesses? You can start to notice now, what are the things you are holding on to? What are the things that you're so attached to that you think they give you comfort or safety? And money is a big one here often for people. Right, next I want to go through these two relatively quickly because I want to spend some time on meditation with you guys. Is dependencies. So what are you addicted to? Now, typically when I ask people what you're addicted to, we have a world of addiction that is known as being bad, like the addiction to alcohol, the addiction to porn, or the addiction to sex, or the addiction to drugs, or the addiction to, I don't know, shopping, or gambling, or whatever it is. Addictions are things that we use to make ourselves feel alive. So addictions are something we use to fill ourselves up when we're not connected to our life source. So I'm feeling depleted, and so I use something as an upper to make me feel good about myself. And so there are many unknown addictions. I can be addicted to my spirituality. I can be addicted to my work. I can be addicted to approval. I can be addicted to crystals. I can be addicted to many, many things in my life. You'll know you're addicted to it because you'll use the following words: I cannot live without it. One of the things that COVID-19 has provoked is healings of addictions. Because the thing you thought you couldn't live without, you've had to live without. You can be addicted to people. You can be addicted to many, many different things. And without a doubt, if you have a look at the healing of addictions, if you look at the AA and you start to look at the 12-step program that exists as the 12-step program to healing addictions, it has all got to do with the detachment stuff that we're talking about tonight, and about connecting to source in the sense of meditation and connection. So all the laws that we talk about, the law of flow, the law of grace, the law of connection, all these things are about healing addictions. And so addictions are not bad. They just need to be replaced with something better. So when you get addicted to life, you won't need things to make you feel better. We typically use addictions to avoid facing life. Now, there's a distinct difference between enjoying and addicting. If I had to take a glass of wine as an example, we were talking about pleasure on one of these, I can enjoy a glass of wine, but I don't have to have a glass of wine to feel better. If I have to have a glass of wine, otherwise I can't relax, that's starting to become an addiction. Yeah. Any obsessive compulsive behavior is an addiction. The kitchen must be cleaned this way. Things must be done this way. Life must flow this way. It's an addiction. There's something you're trying to get a feeling of being alive to in that. One of the things that we also see under dependencies is people that you're codependent on. And codependency is the you complete me statement. I need my person that completes me. You don't need anyone to complete you. You need people to partner with and respect and love and cherish and enjoy and work with. Codependency is where, and again, codependency is a very deep topic. We could probably do a whole program on codependency all by itself. But it's where I don't trust myself, so I need others around me all the time. Now, I make that sound very simple. There's a lot more complexity to it. Codependency has got a lot to do with feeling safe with other people, loved by other people. Again, you will use the words, I can't live without them. The reality is you can, you may not choose to, you may not have to. So many people think the opposite of codependency is being radically independent. And that's not true either. Going to such independence that you don't rely on anybody is not a healthy alternative. What you're looking for is interdependence. I can flow with people. It's like holding hands. Oh, good. I'm glad, Margot. I'm glad that that connects for you. Right. And then lastly, we've got external locus of control. So I know these are a lot to think about, but even if just tonight you focus on one of these things, it'll give you a perspective of what you can start doing. And I'm going to, after this, take you through how do you detach. So an external locus control I spoke about earlier is who's the boss of me. But this is anywhere where I feel like somebody else is controlling me. So you see the puppet on a string? And when I started doing this workshop and I started putting together all the content for this workshop, for this webinar, I can't tell you the most prevalent image that kept coming in the meditation was Pinocchio. And Pinocchio going, I just want to be a real boy. I just want to be a real boy. And even though he didn't have all the strings anymore as a puppet, he still was performing to the criteria of what everybody else wanted him to do. So he wanted to be liked by the cook, so he wanted to do this. So he did the things that the outside world wanted him to do until he started just doing what was good for him to do. And that's when he became a real boy. And what was really interesting in the whole meditation around Pinocchio, and I give it to you because they've asked me to give it to you as a way to think about this, is the role of the blue fairy, of wishing upon a star and allowing yourself to receive the divine guidance, the help, the support, to connect with that part of you that does have the answers, that internal guidance system that allows us, and that's that trusting of yourself, that I don't need to have other people's approval. I approve of myself, I trust myself, and that I connect with the guidance, with your own blue fairy, which can be metaphoric of your own higher self. There are so many things that you feel will be pulling your strings. There'll be people, there'll be money. It's all the things. External locus of control is everything where you use the words, I don't have a choice. So Lana, so beautifully you've said at this point, it feels like the government is pulling all the strings. The reality is they're not. The reality is the government is setting a set of statements, of rules that are there for everybody. What I mean by that is the government has always set rules of what's there for everybody. Driving on the left-hand side of the road is something they've always dictated. You know, the hours of shopping centres. All they've done is changed it because of what's going on. So the idea of feeling like I'm a puppet is that I don't know what to do in response to you. And when I can stop feeling like I have to just do whatever, you say, and I start looking at it as how do I want to work with this? That's the law of flow that we had last week. Then I start to get back my internal locus of control. That there'll be certain things they're saying that I kind of am not really interested, but I'm not doing that from a rebellious place. I'm doing it from an internalized place of what's good for me. Rebellion is still about the puppet strings. Does that make sense, Lana, when I say that? Is that confusing things, or is it making a little bit of sense? Because it does feel like this for many people, and that keeps us quite attached to them, doesn't it? Keeps us quite attached to those stories, keeps us quite attached to feeling like we have to just dance, as opposed to what do I want to do? Okay, perfect. All right, so we've got these 5 factors. A lot for you to have digested. A lot for you to think about. So I'm going to ask each of you to come online very quickly and just say what's one thing you would like to work, that one thing you've become aware of through this chat. And if you can do it quite quickly, So it's one thing that you feel like, okay, so that's the thing I'm most attached to, that if I can work through the detachment process, that will be helpful for me. Because if we can do it for one thing, we can do it for anything. So it's really just identifying one thing that stood out for you. So maybe, Margot, can I start with you? Would that be fair?
Yeah, you can. So in fact, I was super surprised, but your last slide of external locus of control was the one that kind of hit me between the eyes the most. I mean, I've always thought I was internally referenced and didn't have a need for external kind of validation, but just really the realization that I'm kind of a sucker for manipulation, or I'm easily manipulated in that context. So that was a power between the eyes moment. Thank you for that.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to break up with the puppet strings, yeah?
Yeah, exactly that.
Beautiful. Linda, are you happy to go next?
Here we go. I've got a couple of things. So I think I'm just going to go back to the first one of the past. Is that am I on the right track? Something from the past.
Okay.
And it's, yeah, for me it's hideous abuse with my grandmother, and it really has been the voice in my head, and
Okay.
it is an external locus of control, although it's actually happening inside my head. So yeah.
Great awareness is that
happen.
replaying it holds you very, very attached to that as the story of you, and the story of your life, and the story of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, beautiful. Great awareness. Lana, for you?
I think, well, my biggest attachment is my addiction to nicotine. That's a big thing for me.
Okay. And
yeah, and then
lockdown. No wonder you're bringing up the government.
yeah, we are doing it illegally if we have to.
That's, welcome to the world. That's what these things will do to
yeah.
Okay. All right. So play with it a little bit and see what comes up for you around that. Because
Okay.
that sort of addiction can have many facets to it. So very interestingly, the thing that gets shown to me is that it is linked to your defiance. That somehow it feels like smoking gives you, I'm an adult, you can't tell me what to do. And so that might be part of it for you. So just notice how that fits for you.
Okay, I will. Just say that again, sorry.
It's the way they show me your addiction is that it's somehow you've got a story about you can't tell me what to do. So I'm an adult, I can do whatever I want. And smoking is like it's an evidence of that. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does, definitely.
So you can integrate that in and play with that a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Beautiful. Sandra, what's coming up for you?
Hi. Yeah, a lot for me around the control of the future.
Okay.
As in, this is not how I'd planned for things to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and linked hand in hand with that is the ownership.
Okay.
And kind of feeling, how can I put it? Feeling left like I'm baseless. I'm floating around with no real purpose, intention, anything. So I think those two have been the biggest.
Okay. So notice, I can't tell if it's the echo or if there's emotion there for you, but it feels like there's emotion coming up.
There's a bit of both because I have a really empty house.
Okay.
But yes, it has been an emotional black roller coaster the last 5-6 months. So.
Just notice that emotion needs somehow to move as well and allow it to be there. Beautiful. Angela, for you?
For me, it's like for the reference between the seeds of life and the flower of life, and how if you have expectation, the past, ideas to constrict how the natural flow of things, you basically miss a lot of other opportunity that you haven't even thought of.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an interesting idea, but yeah, it's I guess it's the healing the emotional body is a way to release from those detachments.
Absolutely. I mean, if we go back to that picture, which I found quite amazing when they showed it to me this way. I thought, like, I've never thought about it before like this. It's like, this is your blueprint of possibility, and this is what you're doing in your life.
Yeah.
And like, that for me was quite amazing when I saw that. Like, we're missing out on all these points of intersection, of points of growth.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we detach? So I'm going to give you a little bit of insight around it, and then I'm going to take you through a meditation where we can work with some of this. The steps that they've given me for detachment are these ones that are in front of you. And so I'll talk through each of these very quickly. The first thing is that you cannot detach from anything you don't face. So if it doesn't exist, if you pretend it's not there, you're not going to be able to deal with it. So the first thing to do is to face it. Face my addiction, face my wound, face the story in my head, face the thing. So facing something always means I sit and I look at it. I say, okay, that's there. I acknowledge it. I kind of give it presence in my life. And remember, I said earlier, that's without the shame. So it can't be hidden away. It's that this is it. So think of the addictions that, if we looked at the AA, the very first thing is you can't help somebody that will not say, I have a problem, or I have an addiction, or this is what's going on, or this is the story in my head. So we have to face it. It's the hardest thing to do. Once we've got that, we can hopefully do the rest. Sorry, ignore that. Once you face it, you've got to love it. So stop judging it. So let's take Lana, your example. How do you love that you're smoking? Loving means I accept it, I embrace it, I make it part of me. I don't sit in judgment, in anger, and interrogation of it. If Sandra, if we had to use like the perfectionism, or if we had to use being in a place you don't want to be, when you can face that, I don't want to be here, but I can love that part of me that's feeling isolated and alone and let down, and I can just have some compassion that that's part of my life. Does that make sense when I say that? Same with you, Margot. So the same story, you can all have a look at it. And if you had to write a love letter to this, like, if I was kind enough to others, how can I be kind to this part of me? The next thing is to fill ourselves with gratitude for whatever this is that we've been attached to. So what has it been doing for me? How can I be grateful that it's existed in my life the way it has? So you could sit down with anything that you're trying to detach from, and you could use these steps as a journaling step. What do I need to face? How could I love this? Let me write it a love letter. How can I be grateful for this? What am I grateful for? And you can't only be grateful for the nice things, yeah? You've got to be grateful for all the crappy shit that's there too, and embrace that as part of it. Then, oh man, that's irritating. It's integrated. Integration is it does that once more. Integration is the ability to say it's part of me. So separateness is when I make something outside of me. Integrating is that I bring it close. So I face it, I love it, I thank it, I bring it close. And when I bring it close, as I bring it close to me, I can just release its hold on me. And the way I release its hold on me is I connect to source and I let everything flow back to where it came from. So the connection to source becomes a really important part here, because as I connect to source, I release this to source. But I also connect back to the part of me that no longer needs this. And then I need to do something that's evidence of a new pattern. So I need to take action. That could be a small action or a large action. Most of the time, the small ones is what needed. So these are the steps to detaching and then you repeat it. So every time it comes up, you face it, you love it, you thank it, you integrate it. As you integrate it, you hold it, you release it, and then you do something. The do something is not sitting wallowing and feeling sorry for yourself and having a tantrum. The doing something is taking action in the present moment. So action is not thinking. Just make sure that that's very clear in your distinction. Do those steps make sense to you when I say that? You can do that in a meditation, you can do that in a journaling, you can do that as every single time I need to detach from something. These are the steps to doing it. So before I put together this presentation today, you must know these webinars happen literally, I think this one was finished at 20 to 7, because the more, I mean, it sits for the whole week in the back of my mind, but it only manifests itself just before, and I think this was part of the energy of it. But this morning, when I woke up and I connected with Archangel Zadkiel about today, I was guided to connect with the dragons. But the dragon energy is very powerful energy to supporting us in detaching. And so when we work with dragon energy, dragons can work in hollow places. They can get into the spaces that we don't get into. And so I pulled 3 cards this morning, 3 dragon cards to work with. And this was before any of this information had come forward. And when I show you the dragon cards, you'll realize I can't make this shit up, which is what I say this all the time. So at this point, I want you all to think of 1, 2, or 3. So you could think of 1, 2, or 3, so you can see which dragon is the one for you most to work with. I'm going to take you through the dragons, and then we're going to wrap up with the meditation, which will include the dragons and Zadkiel. Okay, so Margot's 2, Angela's 2. I'm glad you like it, Margot. So let's just see the rest. 3 is Sandra. 1 is Linda. 3 is Lana. Okay, dragon number 1 that came up is Kuan Yin's pink dragons. So I promise you, I can't make this up. Brings firm love that resets your karmic balance. See all your cords dissolved by transcendent love. Enjoy your freedom. Look for the divine around you. So Kuan Yin's dragons also relate to this. Face it, love it, thank it, integrate it. You can think of Kuan Yin's dragons helping you with that step. Yeah. Dragon number 2 is the gold and silver violet flame dragon, which is, so this is why I can't make this up. This is Archangel Zadkiel's dragon. And Archangel Zadkiel, along with Saint Germain, works with the cosmic diamond violet flame to transmute anything that no longer serves. So you can invoke the cosmic diamond violet flame and invoke that and say it no longer serves. And the gold and silver flame dragon is here for transmutation. It takes everything, it's the alchemy dragon that works with Archangel Zadkiel, which is the archangel that we're going to be working tonight. And it brings in grace. You'll see the beautiful sacred geometry symbols there. So you can think of that dragon as working with the release it. And then, I can't make it up, the 3rd dragon is the golden dragon of source, the solar dragon. So this is the source dragon that allows you to stand in your masculine energy and take action. So this is all about reprogramming yourself and doing something different. So these 3 dragons, I think it's very humorous, sorry, I find it very funny that the divine works this way, really highlight this process. We can work with Kuan Yin's dragons, the cosmic diamond violet flame, and the solar dragon to do this. And if you keep working with those 3 dragons, they take you through this journey. Right, so you've got your dragon, and I will invoke those dragons in the meditation. And we're going to be working with Archangel Zadkiel, who is the God, or the Archangel of mercy and forgiveness and release and transmutation, and really brings in the cosmic diamond violet flame to help us move forward. So, let's see what Angela's saying. I sent you a picture of the drawing I was doing tonight with the triangle and the circle in the middle, as it is in the 2nd card. Oh, wow. How awesome. Isn't that an awesome validation, Angela? How awesome. Okay, so I know, I'm really sorry, I know we're slightly over time. Are you all okay if we do a meditation for 10 minutes? I really try and get these things to be in on time, but it doesn't always flow that way. So if anybody is absolutely exhausted and would rather do it afterwards, you can. But otherwise, we're going to do 10 minutes and we're just going to do the meditation that can support the energy of what we've done tonight. Cool. So I'm just going to push record here. Okay. So take a minute and really just allow yourself to settle into the space you're in right now. And take 3 deep breaths, and with that, give yourself permission to calm your mind and your body from processing all that you've heard and experienced on this call tonight. Just clearing some space, clearing a pathway. Just in and out with the intention of clearing. And as you become present to the current moment, and you're integrating all the amazing energetic shifts that have been happening for you as you've been exploring your attachments. Just allow yourself to sit in the perfect knowing that this moment is the moment for you to release and detach. Archangel Zadkiel presents himself in front of you. Steps forward in a way that is comforting and inviting, supportive and healing to you. As Archangel Zadkiel steps forward closer into your auric field, you can start to feel the magical power that he brings with him. The power of healing, power of clarity, power of release, the power of love. He steps close to you and places his hand on your heart. As he does so, you feel it pulsing from within you. This pulsing has a purple color to it, a feeling of radiance, magic, alchemy, and opportunity. As you allow the pulsing purple light from your heart center to just expand throughout you, clearing up all toxicity, all residue of anything that no longer serves you physically. Just clearing, 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 clearing. Allow yourself to just bathe in this magical light, this cosmic diamond violet flame pulsing in you and through you. The flame starts to extend outside of you, circling you in a bubble, a beautiful bubble of purple light, pulsing with magic, pulsing with love. You feel safe. You feel held. You feel excited. You feel open. As you find yourself in this purple bubble of diamond violet flame light, you realize you are sitting on your own personal seed of life. You find yourself hovering over it in your bubble, seed of life on the ground underneath you, source of your creation, the portal for your magic. This is your personal seed of life. And as you hover over it, you start to notice the attachments that you've become aware of that hold that seed of life contained. Hold it small. Hold it separate from expanding. Just notice the people, the thoughts, the places, the ideas, the expectations, the addictions, and those that have the puppet strings around you. Notice them all on the periphery of your seed of life. There's no threat, there's just awareness. As you gaze down at this, you can see very clearly how these attachments hold you back from expanding into your true blueprint of possibility, of moving from your seed of life to your flower of life. You can see the barriers to your own expansion. You can just see it. There's no resistance, no anger, there's no judgment. You just see it, facing it. Archangel Zadkiel turns to you and asks you, are you ready? Are you ready to release these? Are you ready to detach? And as you give your permission, he calls forward Kuan Yin's pink dragons. These magical dragons filled with love, compassion, kindness, come flooding in from all directions. Beautiful, dusty pink dragons. As they swoop in, they start to shower all the attachments in love. They throw pink rose petals down. There's a smell of rose in the air. There's no resistance, no anger, just love. And as they circle each attachment with love, it starts to soften. just softens, opens, becomes more available for shifting. You can feel your heart expanding with gratitude. For how these various attachments have tried to protect you, serve you, teach you, honor you, provoke you. You shower them with love. Kuan Yin's dragons settle down and take their rightful place around your flower of life blueprint. And with that, Archangel Zadkiel calls in Saint Germain. And together, they call forward the gold and silver violet flame dragon. Mighty dragon of transmutation. This magical being comes forward in all its grace, presents itself to you with honor, ready to serve you, ready to release you from all the binds, from all the hurts, from all the pain. As you connect with the dragon, you give it permission to release you from all that no longer serves you. And you watch as the dragon moves around your seed of life and flower of life, transmuting and shifting and moving, changing things into the way they need to be. Everything seems to move naturally and easily into its new place. You can feel yourself becoming freer and freer. The gold and silver violet flame dragon takes its rightful place behind you as the guardian for you. There as the protector and keeper of your space. And with that comes forward the golden solar dragon, a beautiful being of golden light that brings with it inspiration, passion, desire, action, knowing, wisdom. Presents himself to you, and as his aura connects with your auric field, you feel a golden light shimmering, interacting, mingling, inviting, and sparking you into life. The golden solar dragon has an instruction for you, an offering. Offers you one step to take following from this. One action for you to flow with. Become aware of that action that is offered to you. golden solar dragon takes its rightful place above you. A constant connection to your source, to the inspiration of your higher self, to your guidance, to the part of you that is brave enough to act. This is your portal of transmutation. You can return here anytime. Kuan Yin's dragons are guarding your portal of transmutation, showering it in love. The golden silver violet flame dragon protects you and offers insight and transmutation. The solar dragon keeps you connected to source. Archangel Zadkiel tells you it's time to return back here now. Bring with you all the clarity and wisdom, knowing you can return anytime and you have continual access to this energy. The great sense of peace and freedom. You return to the here and now. Allowing yourself to step back into your life. Open to all the new possibilities available to you. Oh, I'm so glad, Margot. So, if anybody wants to say anything, I'll give you a chance to do that. The one thing I didn't mention is that the crystal that best serves us is the obsidian crystal. So if you have that, it would be great to work with in the next week. But otherwise, I'm going to leave us here and send you a lot of love. And I apologize, we're after time, but hopefully it was worth every minute of it. And I will see you all soon. Sending lots of love. Namaste. Take care.